Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and I'm really excited actually to be able to answer people's questions directly. I think it's really important. I think at FSD it's really important that we do communicate properly, and then sometimes I think in certain news releases there is some confusion, so I'd like to be able to address those questions live today. So please go ahead and ask the question.
All right, so the first question is from Michael. Michael asks, what is the status on the East Coast plant? Is it being built? Is it in design? Is it anything yet?
Thank you, Michael. Currently, we are still negotiating with the people that did sign the LOI. I think we'll have an update to that later this month for sure.
The next question is from John. John asks, what are the top 5 areas of focus the company is concentrating on to strengthen and drive the company forward in order of importance, please, be it deals, mergers, acquisitions, expansion, NASDAQ, etc.?
So 5. Yeah, so definitely NASDAQ is on our target, and the reason why we want it to be on the target is because we think that really the true future growth from the investment community is going to happen from the U.S. and from international players. When you are trading on a TSX venture or a CSE listed exchange, you can't really get the types of international targets that we're looking at. So NASDAQ is one of them. Mergers, acquisitions, 100% we will be very, very active in. With Durkacz, it didn't work out, and I'll address that later because I think there's a question about it, but yeah, we want to grow by M&A. What we have going for us, at least from a stock perspective, is that FSD is a very liquid stock, so you can use that as a currency to do mergers and acquisitions. I think number 3 is that operationally we want to, number 1, make sure that we are very, very high quality, and number 2, that later this year we will be selling at the highest value per gram by average to the medicinal community. I think operationally we may see, because of the legalization of edibles and possibly beverages, that edibles will be an area that we will at least sort of do the type of can tab deal or other deals that we're about to announce, where people actually borrow or use or lease the facility in order to do something. I think probably edibles made in the form of craft plant would be absolutely incredible, and really sort of already have its own brand attached to it.
All right, the next question is from Sheridan. Sheridan asks, was there a penalty paid for not completing the LOI with TRPX? If so, who paid the penalty and for what amount? Thanks.
Sure. So in the agreement, if TRPX canceled it, I believe it was $600,000 US is the penalty fee. They have not paid it yet. They may take a claim that we did try to change the deal on them. The reason why TRPX deal had to be changed was the fact that when we started negotiating with them and made the announcement, they were trading at $3.50 and went up to $9, and FSD stock went from about 70 cents to 35 cents. So net, the final TheraPix transaction would have cost FSD shareholders over 3 times the amount of shares, which really the board wasn't comfortable with. That being said, I believe that we are still in communication with TheraPix, so it may not be over, yet.
All right, Sheridan has asked another question. What is the value to the daily operations of the company and the shareholders of having our new CEO maintaining residence outside of Canada? Does he have any intention of moving to Canada at some point in the near future?
So I don't know that he's going to be moving. The reason why it is value is because with sort of pharmaceutical being our main focus, so at FSD we want to sort of focus 80% on the pharma side and 20% what we would refer to other. The big money we believe is going to back the pharma side, so that in that case, if you have a strategic investment of $100 million and we have $20 million, that's where that percentage sort of split happens. I think I would say that Rupert is one of the very few people in the world coming from GW Pharma on the sales side that has an understanding of the way that the FDA approval has worked, and so there are not many candidates out there that have that fit that sort of profile, and so we see value in that. Even if you hired a straight pharmaceutical CEO without having some background in cannabis, it may be a longer learning curve than we want to be able to wait out.
All right, the next question is from Michael. Michael asks, why does NASDAQ have top priority in 2019? Is the completion of the halls not more important? Should not the SP grow better organically to make NASDAQ possible? And would it not that be better than an RS? What about the license? Which products are in the pipeline? And are there talks with other companies in the food industry?
Okay, so I guess that's a number of questions. I'll address the first part, and that is a great question. Where the market is going to go, in my opinion, is more towards the biotechnology and pharmaceutical side. So, just the grow side of things, ultimately, I don't think will be as beneficial to shareholders as the medicinal pharmaceutical side of things. So when you talk about spending money, to build the halls, which is a great point, and also a point that when we hosted the open house, we had people coming in, and we took some of the negative feedback, and it was wonderful because that negative feedback really does help us understand what people are thinking about and what they're saying. And so I think it was really, really, really important to get the negative feedback as opposed to the positive feedback. And one of those aspects of feedback was that there was an area that people walk through that sort of has a bunch of like scrap and stuff like that, and that was very well pointed out. So just to let shareholders know, all of that, from what I understand, has actually now been completely cleaned up, and certain construction zones are going up. So that all will be part of a plan. But again, our sort of fundamentals behind doing, say, a deal with an Oxley, or doing a deal with a Canatab, or doing a deal with a World Class Extraction, or other companies that you'll soon see, they pay for the construction, for the modifications, for the build out. We think if we can get others to pay for it, those capital costs are better for our shareholders.
All right. Michael continues on to ask, what about the Jamaica deal? And are there other marketing strategies such as TV spots and print advertising?
So the Jamaica deal, we are still in the works. When the final LOI was ready to be signed on the Jamaican end, the Jamaican group wanted to make some changes that we're not comfortable with. So we are still negotiating. They did send me a message after New Year, wanting to sort of revisit going back to the table. So that's still a work in process. Whether it happens or not, of course, we're not sure. If it's in our shareholders' best interest, then of course we'll do it. If not, we have seen sort of a pretty significant decline in people's interest to do deals out of the Caribbean, I guess maybe for certain like risk standpoints. And so if that's the case, we'll definitely not do anything that would not be what we think is best for shareholder value. There are also some other global opportunities, not in third world countries, that may be a lot more beneficial to FSD shareholders. And so I think, personally, I think we'll be very, very active here on the M&A side, looking at other global opportunities, not only in the Caribbean, and like I said, if it does make sense, but there could be even better ones in other areas of the world that are more sort of first world nations.
All right, the next question is from Sean. Sean asks, what strains of cannabis are you growing, and will you be growing in the future?
So the strains that we have now, I don't know the names specifically of the strains. What I do know is that we did purchase all of the strains from another licensed producer. I don't know if we might have a NDA, so I don't know if I can name them. But what I would say is, all of them were bought from another licensed producer. Going forward, a lot of the strains will probably be coming from coming probably from Oxley and Oxley Partners.
Right, the next question is from Anna. Anna asks, tell us about your master growers, please. And how many more masters do you plan to hire in the near future? And do you hire people to become apprentice master growers yet? Will there be degrees or courses offered for this?
Yeah, so currently there's one master grower, one doctor in charge of quality assurance. We are going to be hiring, we're going to be hiring a lot going forward, especially with Oxley's build out, which now will be happening in Q2. So with that being said, there are courses that we have heard of. I think Niagara College is one of them. If you look it up, there are a couple others now I think that are focused on these courses for growing. It would be beneficial if you're looking for a job in the industry, most likely to have one of those courses completed.
All right, Ron asks, is there anything that you guys can do to expedite the build-out instead of relying on Oxley for construction timelines? Because 9 years as quoted by Thomas Fairfield is quite long. Can you team up with some Dutch companies that have been growing for years and know how to build and grow as well? Is it possible to use some of the $31 million in the bank to expedite the infrastructure build-out in some way?
So that's actually a very good question. So number one, the reason why we don't want, so I would put it in context. So yes, there's $30+ million in the bank. Just the Oxley portion alone, the 220,000 square feet, has a budget of $55 million. So, realistically, how much more of the facility would we be able to cover spending that $31 million? And then if we spent it all on that sort of build out, right, then what exactly would we have left over for, say, some of these other sort of interesting global opportunities and partnerships and stuff that we intend on doing? So I think if we had a strategic partner that put in a significant amount of money, we could look at expediting that. But again, I think we're in a position where we can partner with other companies that will actually pay for building out and retrofitting the facility in different ways, which I think some of them that could add even more value than just the growing.
The next question is from Andrew. Andrew asks, what is the average production cost per gram?
So currently we don't have that because we're not selling as of yet. So the average production cost per gram, I would say right now is probably more expensive only because we were focused on growing solely to get that sales license. So because you're focused on getting that sales license, you are doing things in a little bit of a different way than just doing it in a commercial perspective.
Next question is from Brian. Brian asks, how do you personally feel an RS would affect stock price 1, 2, 5, 10 years?
Sure. So the reverse split, which is something I want to address, and I'll address it sort of this one time so that we can, because I know there's so many questions about it, and rightfully so. So in my experience, I have only seen one reverse split in a Canadian microcap stock actually work, which is this company called Westport Innovations, and it was about 10 years ago. So what I can say is when we started huge and we sort of created this cap structure, it was to have a very big float, which a lot of people criticized us for in the beginning. And so I would even go back to saying, and I remember it was an interesting aspect, I would say about 10% of the people that didn't want to finance us in the very first round or second round of financing was because they said that oh my gosh, you have so many shares out, 1 billion shares out, that's unbelievable, that's incredible. When our stock started trading, so it opened I think at 17 cents, then went down to 12.5 cents, and then was feeling more and more pressure. We had a lot of feedback that most of the brokers who had clients were telling their clients to sell our stock because there's no way that having 1.3 billion shares is ever going to be possible. In hindsight, they were completely, absolutely wrong, and so there would be no point for us to do a reverse split if we had we could have structured the deal in a way that we would never have to do a reverse split. So to make it very, very clear, and especially for this January 22nd vote, the only reason why we are asking for the ability to split. So it's hard to understand, even I had a hard time reading it when I read it a few times. This is only to give the board the ability to split if necessary. There is no way that we are going to split that stock or use that ability unless it comes with a strategic partner that brings in a strategic financing, that the only way they can bring that strategic financing in is through a NASDAQ listing, and that structure of that NASDAQ listing would entail that we have to bring in a reverse split. That is the only way. There's absolutely no other way whatsoever that we would even think about reflecting a reverse split. And again, the proof is because of the way that we actually originally structured this company. We don't see value in reverse splits, but the times that reverse splits do work out, and it's very, very few, is when you do have that big strategic partner. Because if you have a partner that can put $100 or $200 million strategic investment in your company, that also means that they have a very, very big network. And so if they're going to make that kind of investment, we would only look at a reverse split happening in conjunction after we had that money put into the treasury. And that would also mean that these people that have $100 or $200 million or $250 million are sophisticated enough that there's no chance that they would want to see that stock get cut by whatever, 20, 30, 50% anytime soon. So that is the only way that we would even consider it. But the January 22nd vote, to be clear, is even if the vote is yes, and it will be, if the vote is yes, we're not affecting a split. So that's only giving the board the ability to effect a split if necessary. And that is the only way. Otherwise, we're not doing any reverse splits, period.
Okay, the next question is from Michael about FSD Jamaica, but I think that's already been answered. Bastian asks, is the selling of marijuana for recreational use just a temporary measure until the demand for research or medical marijuana is high enough, or is the selling or production of recreational marijuana edibles, beauty products, a part of the pursued business model?
We'll leave all options open, but we are pretty confident that we have a channel to be able to sell most of our produce for the foreseeable future for medicinal purposes or in a medicinal way, and we believe we'll be able to achieve a higher revenue per gram while at the same time maintaining the medicinal focus that we've been focused on.
The next question is from Graham. Graham asks, does FSD employ a compensated salaried employee to oversee and manage the building? Someone who works with Oxley on a daily basis and keeps them on task. Someone who manages this company's greatest asset. If not, who is managing the building build out day in and day out?
Yeah, so currently there is a team. It's led by Thomas on the ground right now. So there's Thomas. There are two other individuals that are pretty much sort of day to day and that are dealing with Oxley. We are going to be hiring, I would say, quite a few more people very, very, very soon. I would say very soon in the Coburg plant because we're going to need a lot of assistance. Things are moving very rapidly, and we want to be ready.
Okay, the next question is from Jeremy. Jeremy says, why can't you guys do a proper video or video reel showing the plants and grow technology so people don't think FSD is bluffing? Everyone wants to see the bud and grow operation in detail. If you look at other companies, there are many. They show us in great detail the LED lights or the HPS grow lights, the resin from the cannabis flowers, how clones are handled with care and safety. If you guys only show 1/9 of the grow rooms with a security camera, people, it makes us feel anxious. Would it be possible to hire professional video editors and photographers to show in more detail? Thank you for taking the time to answer the question.
Yes. So the answer is yes. We'll be bringing on substantially sort of more video and areas that people can look at. There were, because there's been a sort of moving target with Health Canada. Things do sort of rules come, then they get changed, or they do sort of start to amend. So for quite a period of time, it was really, really strict on security protocol that you could not sort of show anything. And so I think, our perspective was that, better to be safe than to be sorry, because the last thing you want to do is break any Health Canada rules, and then one day that's going to really haunt you. And even though it would give shareholders more comfort today, the fact is, if it caused us to lose our license or get our license suspended, that really wouldn't help shareholders, in any way, shape, or form. So, it's just making sure that we're abiding by law. But I would agree. I'd like to see more marketing material that actually shows people what we're doing.
The next question is from Anna. Anna asks, how many people are currently employed at FSD Pharma, day shift only? How many clerical? How many in the grow room? Are employees required 7 days a week, or is the grow room a 5-day-a-week operation?
So you do have 7 day a week grow room just because of the fact that you have to monitor. We have the actual number. I think we have 25 salaried employees, and we have about 10 other consultants, and we will be hiring consistently throughout this year.
The next question is from Sal. Sal asks, assuming revenue starts to come in this year, would it be at all feasible to consider buying back or retiring shares? As more money comes in, more shares would come off the books, causing the remaining shares to increase in value. Obviously, your board knows far better than I how to run a company. I'm just a little wary of rushing in to get on NASDAQ without solid revenues coming in. Would a longer-term approach involving buybacks, in your view, be preferable to an RS?
Buybacks over time, for sure. I don't know that it's going to happen this year, but definitely over time with enough cash flow, a buyback would be something that I would be interested in doing. I don't know that would necessarily, affect in any way in RS. The one thing I would say about NASDAQ listed companies are that some of the times the best performing NASDAQ listed companies are the ones without revenue. So as strange as that may sound, and sort of contrary to regular sort of business aspects and growth, when it comes to the NASDAQ, it's not necessarily a requirement to attract attention in a high growth industry. The necessity to have revenue to be on the NASDAQ is not a requirement for qualification.
John and Sal say, maybe a forward split one day, hands folded, fingers crossed.
Yes, of course. If we could do that, that would be even better.
David asks, any progress on the cardiovascular or steady stomach research in Tel Aviv and in USA with Zohar Koren's clinical trial events?
Yes, there is, and I believe we will see an update very, very shortly. Those updates we tend to produce news on when it's newsworthy, and there's definitely there are things that are happening. So I would say stay tuned. It'll be very soon.
Next question is from Everett. Everett asks, can shareholders expect to receive more consistent communication from FSD in 2019 on business priorities and status? For some time, there was frequent communication on initiatives, strategic partnerships, etc. However, it seemed the horn went dead. In my opinion, the shareholders are left seeing the SP decline and little communication from the company.
So we do try to communicate as much as we can. In terms of news releases, people wanted to sort of get news releases that were substantial in business form. But I think you're absolutely right, and we will do this way more often this year. To shareholders, we are going to communicate directly to shareholders, not even through necessarily news releases, that give shareholders sort of a more regular update and sort of a milestone target that they can sort of begin to track. But it's an initiative that we're going to implement this year for sure. It was sort of on and off, as you said, and you are correct. We will move forward on updating that initiative this year in 2019.
The next question is from Rykard. He asks, I'm a novice investor at most, so I'm just curious. If there is a consolidation of Class A and Class B shares, will we still have knowledge whether board members or founders sell their shares, or will they be disguised in the consolidation?
No, so anytime board members or management buy or sell a share, legally they have to file it on SEDI. So www.sedi.ca. You can find any insider transactions, buy or sell, and it's open to the public. So no, you can't mask any sales, and I guess also, which is a good question, in regards to that Class A share, and there's some verbiage in the circular that went out. If the Class A shares do have to be converted, they will be converted to Class B shares at a ratio of approximately 1-to-1. So, like from a financial value, there really won't be any additional financial value to those Class A shares. But right now, it's perfect. The Class A shares do allow a very big and fast and efficient way of voting for clients. So it's a beneficial thing today.
The next question is from Anna. How many people are currently employed at FSD Pharma?
Yeah, I think I answered that question. So it's 25 full-time and about 10 consultants, give or take. There will be more being added shortly.
Mark asks, will the grow rooms go online as they are completed? So, for example, once 25,000 is complete, then 50,000, etc.
Yes, yes.
Tony asks, can we expect a license to sell date before the end of January? And when will you see revenue begin with your partners whom you're allowed to sell to? Thanks.
Yeah, so giving dates has probably not been a wise choice, and also we also don't want to upset Health Canada by producing dates. What we do know is that we have passed all tests. There's one final pre-inspection audit that we are going to be ready for here very, very shortly. And so once that pre-inspection audit happens, if it passes, we have qualified for the sales license. At that point, it's just a matter of Health Canada making the issuing that actual license. But that, of course, unfortunately, we don't have control over.
The next question is from Brett. Brett is asking, understanding the concept of NASDAQ and how it can open up to new investors, what is the other motivation driving you to push for NASDAQ so soon? I ask because it seems that we are at such an early stage, and I feel that it would put a lot of pressure to get things done even faster. As an investor that is early, I feel that there is already too much expectation for share price since the stock runs up.
So the only reason to go on NASDAQ, well, there are two. It is to be able to bring in a strategic investor that otherwise could not invest in our company today as a CSE listed company, and also to broaden the potential investor network. When you trade on NASDAQ, pretty much anyone in the world, any fund in the world, any family office in the world can trade stock on NASDAQ. That is absolutely not true for companies that are CSE listed, TSXV listed, or even TSX proper listed. So you do have very, very large investment groups and international funds that can only make an investment if you're trading on the NYSE or the NASDAQ or certain other exchanges like the London Stock Exchange or Hong Kong.
Why was the sales license failing not explained to the shareholders? What is the current status? That's from Jesse.
So the failing. So we did have different test batches. The second test batch did have an odd fail, but the reason why we didn't put that out news-wise is because we already had an additional batch that was in the work that wasn't failing. So ultimately, net, I think we thought what was really important is, unless there was some reason for the fail that was consistent, that was going to be a material event because of whatever, let's say the air in the plant, was, had some sort of nuclear toxin in it, then that would be problematic. So in this case, it did appear to be a one-time problem that didn't really impact anything outside of impacted the test results from getting passed, delayed us by about 3 weeks or a month.
The next question is from Elizabeth. It would be nice if you could elaborate on how Australian mining companies have become successful, or is it through a reverse merger with a shell company? Now that the Therapex deal has fallen through, is there another company that they can do this with? Please forward this question if you are able to submit questions. Thanks.
So I'm not sure in regards to Australian mining what the connection is, but no, with Therapex, that was sort of we consider that sort of a springboard to get into the pharmaceutical side on the NASDAQ. Therapex is not the only option. There are many, many others that we are currently pursuing at the moment. So net, nothing's really going to change from that perspective.
Can you confirm the board members who are on the special committee of the board that was formed and is responsible for assessing the mergers and acquisitions? That's from Jana.
Sorry, repeat the question.
Could you confirm the board members who are on the special committee of the board that was formed and is responsible for assessing mergers and acquisitions?
So pretty much every board member and person in management do have a role in assessing the mergers and acquisitions. So it does sort of go through a process, and then when required, you have a special committee that has to comprise of independent directors that then ultimately, with some form of consulting expertise, whether it be lawyers, accountants, or other investment bankers, then sort of go through the merits of the merger acquisition. That is actually a pretty standard procedure and protocol that happens pretty much with every single public company.
The next question is from Bastian. Bastian asks, what is the status regarding world-class extractions, the business that you talked about during the Midas letter interview?
Sure.
Is it part of FSD PHARMA?
So world-class extractions and FSD PHARMA did do a deal together. World-class extractions is a company that I founded. So I founded World-class extractions actually before I ever went on the board of FSD PHARMA. Because I am the founder and largest shareholder of World-class extractions, anything that happens between World-class extractions and FSD PHARMA, I can't have anything to do with, just because there's a conflict of interest there for me. So I have never even read through the agreement that FSD PHARMA and World-class extractions signed, or even there was a news release, and I read, I think, a paragraph of it before my phone went off. So anything to do with World-class extractions, ironically, you would have to ask someone at FSD PHARMA or World-class extractions, because I really don't believe I can have any place because of the conflict being involved in any negotiations. If those companies think it's best for them, that's great. World-class extractions, I know, will be going public in February. The technology that we came up with was sort of more for a really, really large scale. So hemp will probably be where a lot of the extraction is going to be taking place in 2019. In Canada, that you have a limited amount of cannabis that would require extraction because the flower is selling so well because of legalization. In the US, it's a different story, but this whole movement in hemp and CBD from hemp, where you're going to have, sort of really, really big acreage of outdoor farming, both in Canada and the US, is probably going to be a very interesting business coming out this year.
Okay, the next question is from Jack. He has a three-part question. The first part is, are we still specifically looking into business in the Israeli market, since our last proposition into that market didn't work out? As I know, Israelis are at the top of their game for research.
Yes, absolutely. Israelis are at the top of the game for research, and they've, they have a good 10-year head start over everybody else. So that knowledge and that learning curve is invaluable. So yeah, we're still very active in Israeli market and looking at doing deals in Israel.
Jack's next question is, plastic With FSD Pharma being so in depth into research, can we expect, with the space that we have and the science that we want to hold, that we could or might want to become the most effective tool and leader to bring hemp plastic into the world? I think we are positioned perfectly to create or help perfect the cost, designs, and the use of hemp-type plastics on a massive scale. Do you agree?
You know, I love that sort of innovation and creativity, and so yeah, for sure. You know, we'll always look at doing things. You know, I think, in the case of sort of always focusing on the medicinal side of FSD, one of the reasons why I've been always interested in the medicinal side is because I myself, at the age of 23, ended up having a very rare form of cancer. Luckily, ended up getting through it. I am a cancer survivor today, and so to me, I see the value of innovation and creativity more on the on the health and medical side. But in terms of like other areas, and you know, there are so many issues, especially today with plastic and sort of garbage and plastic in oceans, that I think I think it's probably the right area to look into, and for sure, I think, you know, when you're talking about, you know, the sort of hemp stock and some of the fibers and how we can turn them into other materials, that, you know, hemp is a super material, and the reason why hemp was illegal up until this year is because, you know, there were very powerful, you know, pulp and paper, textiles, different types of industries that are going to be impacted by hemp going forward, and that hemp is, you know, clearly a very, very beneficial plant to the world, and so something like hemp plastic I'd be interested in, and we will definitely, you know, do some form of R&D and look at different things that we can do, you know, while we're extracting or while we're getting involved with different forms of hemp businesses in 2019.
Jack's third question is it possible to boost our share value by inviting others onto our property under contract with us, raising our strength and value without us spending more money? We have land and vision. Let others spend their money to be part of our pie. It might help us to get $2 a stock. Then we could do a 2-to-1 split as we join NASDAQ and add a major investor after that.
So correct, that's exactly what we're doing now. And that's one of the reasons why when people say, you know, why should you be spending your money on the capital side of it, it is because we think that we can form partnerships that will spend the money for us. And frankly, probably do a better job than we can in a lot of ways.
The next question is from Rob. Rob has a two-part question. The first part is, in what way would a bank back FSD Pharma during an RS?
I don't know that an RS would necessarily affect any type of bank backing. You have seen BMO sort of get interested in sort of on the lending side. So I don't know that share structure would affect that in any way, shape, or form. The lending side would usually come as a security. Backed lending instrument. On the U.S. side, I think, you know, there's, I think in the U.S. if they do legalize, and you know, I would bet that Trump is going to legalize before his next election, to try to get some votes from that are bipartisan. If he does legalize, I think it's going to open up a whole new world, especially in the American stock markets that, you know, that we had seen in Canada over the last 3 years, like times 10. So I don't think it would stop anybody at all, any bank at all in the U.S. If they can make money and raise money for people, it would be a good thing. Oh, thanks. I'm getting a water. I just to apologize. I am fighting a pretty bad cold today. So if I don't sound that loud, it's because my throat is bothering me a bit, and I was just coughing up this morning a lot. Thanks.
Okay, the next question from Rob again. What happens if we can't maintain a share price that would allow us to remain NASDAQ listed? Will you just ask for another RS or just accept getting delisted?
Yeah, I would never accept getting delisted. Most companies never accept getting delisted, even if they go under the $1 per share on NASDAQ, unless there's a big problem, so that would never happen.
Okay, Jordan asks, can you confirm the actual property size of the facility in Coburg? How many acres does the company actually own, and what is the actual square footage of the facility?
So the acreage that we actually own is approximately 70 acres. There was We've actually been given two different numbers, so we'll have to get you that exact number. So we would say approximately 70 acres for sure is the right number. And in terms of the building, so if you encapsulate all building size put together, it is no less than 620,000 square feet, but we were given a figure of 632,000 square feet in total building size on the property at the moment. There's at least 40 acres of expansion land available on that site.
All right, the next question is from Rob again. Rob asks, the only mention of our second crop failing to pass Health Canada's test was in your last Q&A. Shareholders were never made aware of this prior to the very brief mention. Why was this not disclosed when FSD found out? Do we have an update on the third batch that was sent in? Will we be aware of its status, or will this be answered through an FB Q&A session?
So I did answer that previously. Yeah, it's because we had multiple crops going. One didn't work out, the next one did. That's all done, so we don't have to worry about that whatsoever for the sales license aspect portion of it. Now we're just waiting for this the pre-inspection audit.
Okay, Jeff and Jack are asking, if the outlined area shown is owned by FSD, why can't we rent this to other LPs? How many tenants do we currently have, and what is the income per year?
Yeah, so we're only in the business of renting space to partners. So people that do have product lines that are going to help alleviate or take some of our product, whether it's an oil format or flower format, is exactly what we'll be focused on. Just renting out space for the sake of renting it or renting it to different people, it's got to be someone who's strategic that the space is going to, no matter what.
The next question is from Davis. David, can you confirm how many pairs of socks are remaining in the vault, and can I get one more pair, please?
I did order another 500 pairs of socks, so yes, we'll be able to do that shortly.
Holly asks next, is it sure that the license will come in January? FSD has the confirmation, or is it just a guess and a hope? Thomas Fairfield said middle of January last time. When will we have the pre-sales license inspection?
Yeah, so we don't know as of this. I don't know as of this morning. Thomas may know. We could ask him. There's certain things we're not sure Health Canada likes us to to talk about ahead of time. So we are being cautious in that respect. What I would say is that we are doing absolutely everything, and so I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to give Health Canada everything it needs, and we don't see it going forever. Right now we do have a major shortage of product in this country, so granting companies sales licenses based on delivering what was requested within the application, I can't see that there's going to be too long of a holdup.
Candia has asked a series of questions. The first being, will FSD Pharma get GMP certification this quarter? If not, when?
That would be a question for Oxley, but definitely not this quarter.
The next question is, any intention of acquiring Believe or any company with a license to sell?
So we are very open, and we are in discussions with other companies that make sense. That can looking at acquiring or merging with other companies that will make us stronger and better for shareholders. Excuse me. We're constantly thinking and trying to to open those doors, and we are in a number of negotiations with different companies. Just acquiring a company with a sales license at this stage wouldn't be only for the fact that it's a sales license. There would have to be other aspects that we're looking for, because we're pretty confident here that we're going to get a sales license shortly. So it wouldn't be that we would have to, that we should really pay extra to get something that we believe we're going to get imminently. But there are other reasons to be looking at, and we are, consistently looking at different types of mergers, acquisitions, and partnerships.
The next question is, how many distribution channels have FSD secured?
That's a good question. So we are in the middle of securing what we think could be the best distribution channel in this country, and so I would say stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be able to announce something soon.
What are FSD's strategies to market penetration as standards are getting higher and marketing rules are tightening? Retirement homes, hospitals, gyms, grocery stores, charities, or other.
We will. We'll be at liberty to say that we'll probably announce, shortly. As soon as we, we're 100% able and we have an agreement in place, we'll make an announcement that'll sort of explain what we're doing. Part of what we're doing is confidential, and we don't really want to give up too much information that we think it could be not good for our company or our competitive advantage.
So the next question is, who in your team understands manufacturing and respects TQM lean management? Any delay in projects costs money?
I'm not on the ground there, but I would say there's always delays in projects. I don't think I've ever heard of a project never have a delay, so I think there would be that side of it. But Oxley has a great team, like really a fantastic construction team, doing the work, and between Thomas and a few other people on our end, they've been around, are excellent at on the construction side. So we're very comfortable that we have the right team to be able to deliver where you're not going to have too many delays.
Will you keep the employee number low and adopt more automation?
That's a good question. I think in theory your answer would be yes. In practice, it may not happen. So the Oxley grow areas will be sort of pretty, I would say, technology leading side. However, it still does require a lot of manpower to operate as of today. And unless you want to replace people with robots, I don't think we're at that stage yet, and I don't necessarily know that we'd want to be at that stage. We think we can help people that are local, and I think even now with GM moving out of Oshawa, it's probably better that we hire more people in this province than less.
Why did the Therapix deal fall apart? Did Kronos sabotage it, or was it because they asked for more money, or was it because of religion, or because FSD was not ready?
So definitely not religion. One thing I will say about FSD, which is pretty amazing, is that we have Christians, Muslims, Jews, Protestants. I mean, if there's I don't think there's a religion that doesn't belong to FSD that work either in management or on the board of directors or as a consultant. And literally, I say that across the board. So absolutely not religion in any way, shape, or form. The Therapix deal, like I said in the very beginning, hasn't worked out so far because when we made the announcement with them, their stock went from $3.50 to $9, and our stock went down from 70 cents to 35 cents, which made the stock transaction 3 times more expensive for FSD shareholders.
The next question is, what is FSD's competitive advantage other than location and one roof? Innovation, delivery time, seed to end customer?
That's great. So location, absolutely. And anything in life I learned in real estate is location. So that location will always have a true value to shareholders. Always. Location is, I would argue, probably the best in this country, being that close to the largest market in the country. On the innovation side, I think, we're going to, we've been working on quite a few innovative partnerships and technologies, and, we intend on, on announcing them as soon as, if and when they are signed.
What will you do to get the public trust back from basher or shorter comments on the internet, on Reddit, Stockhouse, YouTube, or the article?
So So I guess there's three types of investors that we know of. There's the pumpers, there's the bashers, and there are the investors. And so the majority of people that write on chat rooms are pumpers or bashers. The majority of investors are only readers. They don't actually participate in the writing. That's a war between sort of your longs and your shorts that goes on in every stock around the world on a consistent basis. So, you'll never get rid of pumpers and bashers. It's impossible. What you do want to do is, deliver, what is absolutely unique or advantageous to shareholders, and you have to keep it exciting. It's really sort of like reading a book or a story. To keep investors invested in your company, or to keep people interested in buying into your company, they have to be able to say, read a chapter and want to read the next chapter. And so there's sort of this interesting similarity. But the war between like the longs and the shorts will never go away. It'll be there forever. What I would say is occasionally, I think if you have a company where everyone just says, "Oh, you're doing a great job," or "You're doing this and that," it's sometimes not necessarily helpful. And the reason being is because then, like, if I think, "Oh, wow, I'm doing a great job," I'm probably going to become more complacent, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So, when you do get people that criticize or write things, that's where it really does get certain aspects and gets us thinking. And so, in a lot of ways, we like to use and we like to read sort of the negative information about us, or be told about the negative information about us, because in the event that negative information is true, it's got to be something that we're going to correct.
So the next question is, can you please talk more about the production and progress in the milestone when being interviewed and nothing else, like the stock structure or private life matter? There's no need to reverse split. It needs speed, innovation, and better marketing. Don't be GNC, Herbalife, or Fad.
I'm not sure that was a question.
Okay, we'll move on. Shamima is asking, is there any new supply agreement coming up in the near future with other LPs, as FSD has license to sell to other LPs? Can we wait several quarters on the reverse split?
So I don't know if I'm not sure that we would necessarily sell to other LPs anytime soon. We are in the middle of a transaction. If and when it gets done, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll make an announcement, and that will be the primary channel that we'll want to be selling through.
Rijul asks, does anyone know at what point the RS can be implemented? Could they decide to do one tomorrow? In theory, of course.
After January 22nd, if it's approved, then yes, in theory they could do one the next day. I can tell you with certainty that there's no chance that is going to happen.
Stefan asks, is there another licensing process through Health Canada needed for the new growing area, which will be finished in mid of 2019?
Not a new license, but an expansion of the license.
Andrew asks, how much product is currently in storage ready to be sold?
Currently, I don't think a lot. I think under 10 kilograms as of today. That pile, though, will consistently be going up, consistently.
Terry asks, will stockholders be alerted prior to an RS?
Absolutely, yeah, by law. But again, there's no chance I would ever back a reverse split unless it's for the single right reason, and the single right reason is because you have a strategic partner or partners that are involved that would not let that stock split reduce the value of their investment by a substantial amount due solely to the reverse split.
Rijul is asking, how soon can an RS be implemented if Class A shareholders wish to go down that route?
Again, it was the same thing. You could literally do it the next day, but that is not going to happen. It'll only happen if and only when we have the right strategic investors and partners.
John asks, there was a reported delay in the building permit for the on-site dispensary and concern that the roof needed to be repaired right away. Has this been resolved?
So not that I had heard, but what we do know is, the Ontario government did change, some of their rulings. So they only allowed this 25 lottery issuance to begin, and they have not granted licensed producers that ability to build an on-site location. So even if there was a delay, it doesn't really matter right now because we're not going to be able to be open in April anyways, as of right now.
The next question is from Eduardo. He's a little hesitant. He wants to ask, could you please clarify some issues around the proposed consolidation? Some of the threads and comments on this announcement have been insane in my opinion, so as to not ramble.
So, yeah, same questions.
Okay.
No more RS questions. I've answered them all.
Okay. Graham asks, is the sales license once finalized by Health Canada good for the 220 build out, or will we require additional microbial lot testing, or will it be implemented or amended to the existing 220 expansion?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know, and because I wanted it to be fair, so I didn't want to sit there and actually prepare ahead of time answers. So because people asked it to be live, I wanted it to be live. I don't know the exact answer to that question, but I'll get you that answer. Can you circle that answer and I'll get the definitive answer and we'll post it on Facebook.
James is asking, can you please confirm that Andy DeFrancesco has zero to do with FSD Pharma and its affiliates? Just read some Reddit posts about this and they mentioned him a bit, but the big investors are upset about the miscalculation on the Central Park comparison, and that turned heads away. Loss of trust. It's a very funny read.
So we have zero to do with Andy DeFrancesco directly or indirectly, and we probably never will. I had a First Republic, my investment bank, had a dealing with Andy. We did financing for Delavico real estate, and so from that experience, no, he's not connected in any way, shape, or form. The reference to Central Park was totally a mistake on our part, and it was because I think I can't remember who came, and that was the problem. Someone had come up with that comparison, and it was only until after the CTV interview that we came to the realization that it was not accurate. So since then, we of course had to remove that. But no, they're absolutely right. We did lose credibility, and that was our fault that we didn't look into it.
The next question is from Elizabeth. Has FSD Pharma considered aquaponics using fish water as fertilizer?
No, we've heard too many horror stories about the fish water and the problem of dealing with bacteria and stuff like that from the fish, so no.
Jack asks, is it possible to build another floor on top of the building that you have for double the space? Also, would you be interested in finding amazing microgrowers that can grow amazing weed and implement it 220,000 square feet? Go to Colorado or California and look up talented growers to create fire weed.
Yes and yes.
Jake asks, did anyone in the regulations to huge shops or chairman's brands win the Ontario retail lottery? If so, can you comment on the plan we have going forward with huge shops? I noticed we are involved for 9.9%, which is right at the maximum limit for licensed producers in regards to private retail shops that are eligible for the expressions of interest for a cannabis retail store license in Ontario.
So yeah, huge shops directly did not win one of the lottery picks. However, indirectly, there are people I think that they're talking to right now. With huge shops, so we don't own 9.9%, we own under 9.9%. And, look, they, at the end of the day, they have a relationship with Chairman's Brands, which is Coffee Time and 2-for-1 Pizza and New Orleans Pizza and the Friendly Greek and Egg Smart. And so, they do have access to incredible locations. So over time, we think, at least from a valuation perspective, from what Huge or FSD was able to invest in terms of valuation, it was a excellent investment, and always leaves that door and relationship open on the financing side. The same thing happens because FSD also, that people tend to forget, does also have a small percentage ownership of High Tide as well. That's it? Okay, cool. So maybe if you don't mind, we'll take a little break so I can go to the washroom and also clear up my throat because I've had this frog sit in my throat from this cold. And then I'm happy to answer any other questions live for people up until, what time is it? 10:45, yeah, until about 11:30. Okay, great. Thanks. We'll start in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for letting me take that break. I'm back to answer more questions. So I guess, David, we have more questions now, right?
Yeah.
They had come in live while I was talking.
So Mark is asking, what is the reason behind having a large number of outstanding shares? Why did you choose to follow the Australian mining share structures? What are the benefits of that model?
Great question. And I alluded it earlier. One of the interesting things about what had happened with the Australian share structure were that I think most people in Canada thought it wouldn't work. So when we first unveiled, and I would say about 10% of people opted not to finance us, and many brokers across the country had told their clients to sell, at prices like 15 cents and 12 cents and 10 cents, fearing that it wasn't going to work. And then, of course, Huge ended up doing something completely different. The reason being is because ultimately, we believe we can have a higher market cap, and by having a higher market cap gives us more flexibility to be able to do mergers and acquisitions, to raise money, to use the stock as currency to continue to allow the company to grow as quickly as possible. And so those were the drivers. The other thing is it actually makes us unique because currently we have the most actively traded stocks. Since we started trading on May 29th, we have had the most actively traded stock on the CSE over 90% of the time. But on the CSE, another 50% more shares trade that people don't see show up on the CSE record in what are called other exchanges like the Chi-X and the Alpha and Matchmaker. And so these other exchanges, if you take all those into consideration, not 90%, but 98% of the time since we went public, we're the most actively traded stock. So why is that important, or what really brings value to FSD shareholders? Is it really does allow us, pretty much at all times, to use the stock as currency. It will always allow us to raise money. Microcap companies in Canada, if they don't have liquidity, can end up running into trouble, trying to use their stock as currency. So. At the end of the day, it's done us well, and we still have a $500 million market cap because of it.
Sheridan asks, I understand why you hired Rupert, but my question was, why is he not moving to Canada to take the reins on-site rather than from across the ocean?
Because the plan is on the pharmaceutical side to actually do and run pharmaceutical activities globally, which will include out of the UK, in Europe, and in the United States. In fact, the majority of pharmaceutical work and investing activity will happen outside of Canada.
Do you know when the pre-sales inspection will take place?
No, but it will take place imminently, and if I was to guess, it would take place in weeks. If I had to guess, but please don't hold me to it.
Dilu was asking, where do you see the stock price in the next 3 years, and what do you think are the obstacles or opportunities in our business in the upcoming days? Thank you.
So, share price, first of all, I can't really make any predictions. I think that's against the law. The obstacles in the market, especially in Canada, I think what we're going to see are a lot of the smaller cultivation operators are going to have a hard time raising money and maintaining market capitalization, and they're going to start running into trouble. And so I think that's going to be a challenge for Canadians. I think where there could be some interest or some excitement that happens out of Canada is going to be on the edibles and beverages side of things. I think we might see some interesting activity come out of that. But again, I think if you're going to be a major player, you have to think bigger and you have to think global. and you have to think access to big money, and Canada is a wonderful country, which I love dearly, but it's, we're smaller in terms of cannabis consumption than only the state of California. So, at the end of the day, it's just such a small piece of what is such a very, very large pie globally.
Leonard asks, is the Kenera facility built out by FSD or Auxly?
So the Kenera facility is built out by Kenera. They are close to being done. And so the 140,000 square feet is actually a FSD Site B license. So we wish them all the best. Kenera did start trading this morning. It's actually trading like 3 times the volume of Huge, I think, today, which is interesting. And which is great. They're a partner. They also have a incredible facility that's 1 hour away from Montreal. I think so between Quebec and Montreal, we really do have the 2 biggest provinces covered.
Anthony is asking, how and when do you anticipate being on the NASDAQ? Is not a minimum share price of $4 a requirement? What will move the stock price to that level, and when do you anticipate that happening?
So we anticipate it happening, within the next few months. Depending on how you go public on the NASDAQ, yes, in general, you need to have a $4 minimum share price. We are told that there are different ways that you can structure that so that, we wouldn't have to touch FSD stock, but that would be depending on what type of merger acquisition, if that is the case that we do. That's really what will determine it. And it is a little bit legally complicated doing that type of transaction with, say, an Israeli company, for example. So it hasn't been, a question that we can just answer, really, really easily, because even our own lawyers and accountants give us sort of these, multiple sort of, there's A, B, C, D, E, and so it's impossible to say this is exactly what's going to happen.
Hans is asking, what is the current status of the Auxly Phase 1 build-out? From accounts from the tours, seems to be little progress. Prefab walls are stacked up, seems to be taking a long time. Kenera's build-out seemed to be ahead of FSD's. Is that true?
Kenera's build-out, as of right now, is, I think, a little bit ahead of FSD's. Auxly FSD, portion of the 220,000 square feet, was moved from having an initial date of end of December, very, very initially, to Q1, and now has been pushed to Q2 publicly by Auxly.
Guy is asking, Anthony, instead of considering an RS, why not do a company buyback at the current level? The stock is now at a nice uptrend. RS will definitely crush the stock. Please consider this not crucial to do an RS at this time. Thank you.
And you're correct. So it's not crucial to do an RS at this time, and we won't, unless it's paired with the exact, with the proper strategic partner and situation. In terms of a share buyback, outside of the $7 million we issued to Auxly at $1 a share, a lot of times when a buyback happens in a microcap company that's not cash flow positive, it's because the share price is lower, or significantly lower than the last financing price, which is not the case in our situation. So share buyback, and really wouldn't be able to impact it that much unless we have a lot more money to be able to buy back with.
Okay, the next question is, are there any sales being generated from the 25,000 square feet?
Not yet, because we don't have the sales license.
Leonard is asking, will FSD Pharma place solar panels on the roof areas to offset hydro costs?
It is possible. We have already ordered a natural gas generator to help, I think, offset hydro costs by more than 50%.
John is asking, what happened with FSD Atlantic? Thanks.
It's currently still in negotiations. We'll have an update to shareholders by the end of this month.
Pat is asking, I believe FSD participated in the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco. Did we have any success in creating new potential partnerships or deals?
I'll find out tomorrow. So Rupert is flying in tomorrow afternoon. and Dr. Raz is flying in on Wednesday, and we have a full day strategic session with updates on Thursday.
Chad is asking, based on your business plan, when does FSD expect to turn a profit?
That's a good question. It'll be dependent on a number of different factors. If you are to separate sort of our go forward company with a pharmaceutical strategic partner, we think operationally with the sales channels that we're working on in Canada, we'll be able to obtain a very, very healthy margin. So I would target from an operational standpoint, not including pharmaceutical, that we would want to be in a net income positive situation in 2020.
Daniel is asking, with a $430 million company can buy all your shares, is there a chance a beverage company can come in and do a takeover?
There's a chance for any company to do anything from any industry. With cannabis right now, it's pretty interesting because you have alcohol, you have tobacco, you have beverage, you have pharmaceutical, you have pulp and paper, and you have textile. So there's a lot of different industry partnerships or takeovers that I think we'll all see in the next couple of years coming out. Okay. Oh, and then so that was it from the printed out questions that David was able to get us. So Melissa Robb, will there be another tour open house of the FSD facility in the future? Absolutely. We will arrange one. We'll arrange one later this quarter, and you will see a lot of, I think, improvements from the last tour. That says, would you be willing to consider a big pharma partnership? Yes, absolutely. Tori Anderson, is GW a potential partner? It's hard to say. I wouldn't name any names at the moment being under NDA. Hans McFarland, seems like FSD is very heavy at the C level for a company of its size. Between yourself, Raz, and Rupert, we need a qualified CEO. I think any of the three are qualified, but don't need 3 CEOs. So just hands to make sure that the shareholders do understand, and that's a very good question. So Raza and myself don't earn any salary whatsoever. So we only work for options. So we have the Apple format, the Steve Jobs format, that we don't even get paid $1. We get paid 0, and we work only on the option side. So when you think it's sort of heavy from that perspective, it's not heavy in terms of shareholders having to pay for heavy salaries. Lanny Barcelos, can you elaborate further on the international strategy for FSD and high-level timelines to execute on that strategy? Yeah, so we see a ton of opportunity globally right now, especially in the first world nations, and especially in Europe. We would like to either get in directly, or we'll form partnerships, or look at doing some form of merger and acquisition to move ourselves up there faster. So I can't give you a specific timeline yet that we haven't made public, but we will be very, 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 very active this year in 2019 on moving global sort of targets. Andrew Stephen, what size of expansion are you looking at after 220 square feet is completed, and will Oxley fund that as well? So the answer is they may or may not. So it'll depend, of course, on, I guess, a number of different aspects at that time. We do hope they do, because we've been working together really, really well, and I think there'll be different factors going to play into that. But there are also other areas that I think will be perfectly suited for other types of lines as well than just growing. The growing in other lines also, because we have so much space at the facility, we'll always be able to bring people in of different types of value-added product lines. Okay. Please elaborate on 3-month timeline for NASDAQ listing, Tori Anderson. Yeah, so I would say it's about sort of 3 months, 3 to 4 months is the timeline. DG, you said listing on NASDAQ will happen in the next few months. You said before this would happen if there was a larger company investing. Can we assume talks are in the works with a large investor? Yes. The answer is yes. I think that's good, right?
Is there anything else you'd like to comment?
Yeah, so I think, number one, I want to thank everyone that participated and spent your morning with us. Without you shareholders, it's we wouldn't be where we are today, and so we think it's really, really important to maintain contact with everybody and communication with everybody, and I also want to thank David Rosenberg here for putting this all together. I don't know if you guys actually know, but David's been running our Facebook page for us. David does not get paid. I tried to pay David to run this Facebook page because he's done such an incredible job, and really, I honestly feel bad that he doesn't make any money off it. So I would say kudos to David, and thank you so much for putting this together. And we will host more of these because it's very, very, very important for us to make sure that we're communicating properly. And I think we've learned that we made a big mistake in the way that we offered this reverse split. I don't think that we were. It was too complicated wording, and we didn't make it clear enough that split is only in conjunction with if something happens, and that there's no way that it's going to happen without it. So I think that's where we made an error, and we always love feedback. We always love negative feedback. So please always make sure that you give us all the feedback that you can, and again, thanks to David, and honestly, I mean, he's just done an incredible job for FSD and FSD shareholders to date. So thank you very much for joining, and hope to talk to you very soon again. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice day, everyone.